Valerie Bertinelli once said she had seen more unstable people in the world of television than in Eddie Van Halen's rock world. She had never.
Valerie Bertinelli and Eddie Van Halen's story began like something from a Hollywood film. Valerie was already a familiar face to many Americans because of her role as Barbara Cooper on the popular TV sitcom One Day at a Time. She was the sweet girl next door, loved by families for her wholesome image. Eddie Van Halen, on the other hand, was a completely different type of star. As the lead guitarist of the legendary rock band Van Halen, he lived the unpredictable, chaotic life of a rock star. When their paths crossed in 1980, it seemed almost impossible that these two people from such different worlds could find common ground, but they did. Their connection was immediate, and before long they were deeply in love. On April 11, 1981, they tied the knot in a quiet ceremony in California, beginning what many thought would be a fairy tale marriage. Even though their lives were full of demanding schedules and very different careers, Valerie and Eddie tried to make things work. Valerie often traveled with him on tours, doing her best to balance the glamorous but stressful world of rock and roll with her own acting career. Their love stories showed that two people from opposite backgrounds could come together when there was a strong emotional bond. And for a while, they managed to make it work despite the pressures around them. A major turning point came in 1991 when Valerie and Eddie welcomed their only child, Wolfgang Van Halen. For Valerie, becoming a mother was the happiest moment of her life. She hoped that their son would bring them closer as a family, creating stability in their sometimes unstable world. Valerie slowed down her career to focus on raising Wolfgang, balancing her time as a wife, mother, and public figure. She believed that if she poured enough love into her home, she could hold everything together. But life was not simple. Eddie often lived a rock star lifestyle, which meant long tours, heavy drinking, and late nights. Valerie frequently found herself alone, trying to keep things running smoothly at home. Despite the challenges, she remained committed. She stood by Eddie even as he faced serious health struggles, including mouth cancer that resulted in part of his tongue being removed. Publicly, the couple still appeared strong, attending events together and presenting themselves as a happy family. But behind closed doors, the cracks in their marriage were deepening. Valerie tried to protect their privacy, choosing not to expose their problems in interviews. She believed that by staying silent, she was protecting both Eddie's reputation and her family. However, silence came with its own price, as she often felt isolated and unsupported. By the early 2000s, Valerie and Eddie's relationship had reached a breaking point. They confirmed their separation in October 2001, though they avoided turning it into a public scandal. After over 2 decades together, their divorce was finalized in December 2007. Unlike many celebrity breakups, theirs was not filled with courtroom battles or public accusations. Instead, Valerie chose to remain quiet and focused on raising Wolfgang. During these years, she continued to work on television and began writing cookbooks, while Eddie retreated from the public eye as he dealt with ongoing health challenges. At first, fans were surprised by how peaceful their separation seemed, but it would take time before Valerie fully shared what had gone wrong. In her 2008 memoir, Losing It, she finally revealed that addiction had played a central role in their struggles. Eddie had been addicted to cocaine for much of their marriage, and his heavy drinking often left her feeling abandoned. She admitted that she loved him deeply but no longer felt like his partner. Instead, she was living alongside his addiction, unable to reach him emotionally. Valerie also confessed to having an affair during a low point in their marriage, not because she stopped loving Eddie, but because she felt desperate for comfort and attention. Eddie, too, had affairs while on tour, but neither of them confronted each other about it. They drifted apart in silence, each coping with pain in their own way. The years following the divorce were difficult for Valerie. Her mental health suffered, and she developed an eating disorder while withdrawing from the spotlight. She admitted that she avoided socializing and often stayed at home, feeling hopeless. She told Oprah Winfrey in an interview that it was not just the end of her marriage that broke her spirit, but the end of her belief that love could fix everything. Despite her heartbreak, she remained connected to Eddie for the sake of Wolfgang. In 2020, when Eddie's cancer returned and worsened, Valerie was often by his side. On October 6, 2020, Eddie Van Halen passed away, surrounded by Valerie, Wolfgang, and close family members. Valerie posted a heartfelt message on Instagram the same day, saying she was grateful to have been with him in his final moments. Her tribute was emotional and raw, showing that even though they had divorced years earlier, her love for him remained. In her 2022 memoir, Enough Already, Valerie shared more details about Eddie's final moments, describing them as both heartbreaking and peaceful. They exchanged words of love and forgiveness, finding closure after decades of ups and downs. Many fans admired her honesty, but some later criticized her when, in 2024, she publicly said that Eddie was not her soulmate. Valerie explained that she had once believed he was, but over time realized she had loved an idealized version of him rather than the real man. She shared this truth not to damage Eddie's legacy, but to help others who were struggling in similar relationships. After Eddie's passing, Valerie entered a new stage of her life. She had remarried in 2011 to Tom Vitale, a financial planner. But by 2021, that relationship also ended in divorce. Valerie admitted on social media that she had often given too much of herself in relationships, hoping that love would heal her wounds, only to feel empty in return. Following her second divorce, she began therapy and gave up alcohol, focusing on her mental health. She also committed to a quieter lifestyle, no longer chasing fame or public approval. Valerie became more open about her struggles, using her platform to talk about anxiety, depression, and healing. In 2024, she even shared a video of herself having a panic attack, explaining that she wanted others to know they were not alone. While some criticized her for being too vulnerable, many praised her bravery. Valerie's honesty about mental health resonated with countless fans, especially women who had gone through similar challenges. She began to see her life less as a series of failures and more as a journey of self-discovery. As Valerie moved into her mid-60s, she focused on redefining who she was beyond being Eddie Van Halen's ex-wife, or the cheerful TV star of the 1980s. She stepped away from her longtime cooking show, Valerie's Home Cooking, and later from Kids Baking Championship. While she admitted these endings were painful, she embraced them as part of her growth. She shifted her attention toward lifestyle work, appearing on The Drew Barrymore Show to speak about emotional wellness, boundaries, and life after divorce. On Instagram, she began sharing more personal content, documenting both her struggles and her moments of peace. Unlike her earlier career, which was focused on pleasing others, this new chapter was about honesty. Valerie made it clear that she was no longer looking for outside validation. Her message was simple: happiness comes from within, not from applause or relationships. This authenticity made her more relatable to her followers, who appreciated her willingness to speak openly about pain, growth, and resilience. Through every chapter of her life, Valerie's most consistent source of joy and pride has been her son, Wolfgang. Their relationship is strong and built on mutual respect. Wolfgang followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a talented musician in his own right. In 2006, he even joined Van Halen as their bassist. Both Eddie and Valerie supported him fully, showing that despite their differences, they remained a united front as parents. In recent years, Valerie has often said that Wolfgang is her greatest accomplishment. She made a surprise appearance at one of his concerts in 2025, playfully telling the audience that she would never join his band but would always be his biggest fan. For Valerie, her role as a mother has been the most grounding and meaningful part of her life. Wolfgang, in turn, has spoken about how his mother helped him understand both the good and difficult sides of his father. This honesty allowed him to grow without repeating the same struggles. Their bond reflects a deeper truth. While marriage has ended, her love and dedication as a mother never wavered. Today, at 65, Valerie Bertinelli is no longer defined by her past labels. She is not only Eddie Van Halen's ex-wife, nor just a sitcom star or cooking show host. Instead, she has chosen to live authentically, sharing her story with honesty and vulnerability. Her journey is one of love, struggle, loss, and healing. She has faced addiction, divorce, grief, and mental health challenges, yet has emerged with a stronger sense of self. Valerie once said, "The light at the end of the tunnel doesn't come from someone else. It appears when you stop and turn toward yourself." This message reflects the lessons she has learned through decades of personal and public battles. Eddie Van Halen's legacy as one of the greatest guitarists in rock history will always remain, while Valerie's legacy is one of emotional honesty and resilience. Together, their story represents both the beauty and the pain of love lived. Under the pressures of fame, their marriage may not have lasted, but their bond through Wolfgang and the lessons Valerie continues to share ensure that when people look back at Valerie Bertinelli and Eddie Van Halen's marriage, it is impossible to ignore the heavy pressure that fame put on their relationship. Both of them were in the public eye from a young age, and both lived under the constant spotlight of fans and media. For Valerie, her fame came from television. She was the symbol of America's girl next door, expected to be cheerful, sweet, and wholesome. This image followed her everywhere, making it hard for her to openly show sadness, frustration, or weakness. For Eddie, fame was different but equally difficult. As one of the most innovative guitarists in rock history, he was always expected to perform at his best. The band Van Halen became one of the biggest names in the 1980s, and with that came endless tours, parties, and pressure to keep up the wild image of a rock star. Behind the scenes, Eddie turned to alcohol and drugs, not only as part of the rock culture, but also as a way to manage stress and insecurities. Addiction is often described as a family disease, because it does not just hurt the person using substances, it impacts everyone around them. For Valerie, Eddie's addiction meant nights of worry, feelings of loneliness, and a sense of helplessness as she watched the person she loved slowly destroy himself. Their home may have looked perfect. From the outside, but on the inside it was full of tension. This is one of the reasons Valerie's later honesty mattered so much. By speaking out about what she went through, she gave a voice to many people who silently live with the effects of addiction in their families. One part of Valerie and Eddie's relationship that never wavered was their devotion to Wolfgang. Becoming parents brought them moments of joy that stood apart from their struggles as a couple. Wolfgang's birth in 1991 gave them a reason to stay connected, even when their marriage grew fragile. Valerie often said that her son was the greatest gift of her life, and Eddie, despite his personal battles, deeply loved being a father. As Wolfgang grew older, his parents encouraged him to follow his passion for music. By 2006, he joined Van Halen as the bassist, a rare achievement for someone so young. Both Valerie and Eddie stood proudly by him during this time, showing that even though their marriage was over, their commitment as parents was unshakable. For Wolfgang, this meant growing up in a home that was unconventional but supportive. Valerie made sure he understood his father's brilliance as a musician, while also being honest about Eddie's flaws. This balance helped Wolfgang develop his own path without repeating the same mistakes. After Eddie's death, Wolfgang often credited his mother for guiding him with honesty and strength. The deep respect between mother and son is clear in the way they speak about each other. Valerie's support for Wolfgang also gave her a sense of purpose during her hardest times. Even when her marriages failed, even when she felt lost, she never doubted her role as a mother. Today, Wolfgang continues to carry both his parents' legacies with pride, and Valerie has called their bond the clearest accomplishment of her life. Valerie's decision to open up about her marriage, both in memoirs and on social media, sparked strong reactions. Some fans praised her honesty, saying her willingness to talk about addiction, infidelity, and emotional struggles was refreshing in an industry where image often hides the truth. They felt inspired by her bravery and related to her experiences. Others, however, criticized her, especially after Eddie's death. They believed she should have remained silent about his addictions and flaws, arguing that speaking about them after he passed away was disrespectful. Valerie responded by explaining that her intention was never to harm Eddie's legacy. Instead, she wanted to share her truth in a way that could help others who were silently suffering. She reminded people that telling her story was also part of her healing. This debate reflects a larger challenge many public figures face: the balance between personal honesty and public expectation. Valerie's willingness to accept criticism without lashing out showed her growth. She no longer needed everyone's approval. Instead, she chose to stand by her truth, even when it was uncomfortable. This shift in attitude became part of her larger message that self-respect and emotional health must come before public opinion. In many ways, the controversy only highlighted how powerful her voice had become, because it sparked important conversations about grief, addiction, and what it means to share personal truths. Valerie's journey through 2 divorces taught her valuable lessons about love, self-worth, and resilience. Her first marriage to Eddie Van Halen showed her the limits of love in the face of addiction. No matter how deeply she cared for him, she could not save him from his struggles. Her second marriage to Tom Vitale revealed another truth, that giving too much of yourself in a relationship